Thank you, Bob. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Jones, I'm the West Coast Program Manager for PaintCare. I'm here to present today a summary of California's 2015 annual report. Again, please know that we really do appreciate you joining us today and your interest in the California PaintCare program. It's been a very successful year for paint recycling and responsible paint management here in California, and I'm glad to share it with you. Today we're just going to talk about this is an outline of what we'll be talking about today, the history of the California program, program outline. For those of you who are not intimately familiar with the program, we'll review that again, talk about what we've been up to over the last year, and talk about the financing mechanism, as well as what we've been doing to try to get in front of the public. So without further ado, I will begin the presentation. For those of you who are not familiar with PaintCare, PaintCare is a nonprofit 501c that was begun in 2009 by the American Coatings Association to represent the paint manufacturers in states like California that pass paint stewardship laws. The Board of Architectural Paint Manufacturers, many of whom are also retailers, and our role is, as an operational organization, is to design and implement all aspects of paint stewardship programs. At more to the point, we're trying to make paint recycling easy, as the graphics show in the right side of this slide, and also to reach out to audiences such as the multilingual audiences that are also throughout our communities. Looking at where we're at currently nationwide as a program, there are currently 8 PaintCare states and to join the District of Columbia in 2016. The combined population of all the PaintCare states is 61 million people, meaning that 19% of the United States population lives in a PaintCare state. 200 manufacturers nationwide registered in the program, actually even more so in California, and I'll get to that a little bit later. About the stewardship law, again, this is for people who are just maybe new to California's stewardship law, maybe would like to know that, that AB 1343 was introduced in February of 2009, passed in September 2010, signed by Governor Schwarzenegger, and much like the other paint stewardship laws, it requires manufacturers to develop and implement a program to collect, transport, and process post-consumer paint, with the goal of reducing generation of post-consumer paint, promoting the reuse and using up the post-consumer paint, and making sure that end-of-life recycling and disposal is done properly. So for the outline of the program, we're going to talk about how the program is structured specifically in California, and we'll take a look first at where we're at today in terms of regions in California. So this is the view of the California program from the largest view, that's the state level, and currently we have 4 regions, soon to be a 5th. So just to explain this one slide a little bit more, in green at the top, northern counties, you've got Doria Kent, who is still there. Terry Ryan in yellow, handling the counties in yellow. Brandon Nelson Zarahi in the counties in orange. And then to the right, you'll see Nicole Dorr, a new region encoded in Peel, I believe that is. And that's the Central Valley, the Peninsula, San Francisco, San Mateo County, and then also some areas up in the Tahoe area. So, and then a change that will be, she'll be starting December 1st with PaintCare in that new region. And then a change is taking place in Southern California with Kevin Lynch transitioning to becoming the Colorado Program Manager in 2016, and now currently an employee of PaintCare, started on November 1st, is Nicole Hall, who will be, basically that region, nothing's changing with that region. She'll be taking over for Kevin as he moves to Colorado. So an update on where we're at with registered manufacturers and products. Currently there are 222 registered manufacturers in California, and that's up 32 from 2014. And these are manufacturers of products as listed below. Anyone who's familiar with the PaintCare program knows that it's not all paints, it's architectural paints. And these are the program products on the left that are covered by the registered manufacturers. The program products are assessed the PaintCare fee, and the products are accepted at the drop-off sites throughout the state, which is a mix of municipal and private locations. For folks who aren't quite versed in how the program or how the fee structure, the handling of the funds work, essentially the money, the funding of the program is premised on a fee per container. The fee structure is on the right, and the manufacturer hands a 75-cent fee down to their distributor and retailer, who then passes that down to the customer. The money that's collected through that is then given to PaintCare purely for the purpose of managing and collecting paint. So here are the different types of places, different types of locations. This list is a little bit different from last year. We're going to break out and sort of show exactly how the paint is, or the different places the paint is being taken to. So this list is in no particular order, just retailers, facilities, HHW facilities, and then a group of facilities that are not HHW facilities, but they're kind of fulfill a similar function. The three of them: transfer stations, landfills, and recycling centers. And then you've got private paint recyclers. Reuse stores, HHW events, paint-only events. I'll talk about this a little bit. Large volume pickups, which we'll also talk about, and then the door-to-door programs that we partnered with across the state. Who can use the program? Well, it's really a basic division between latex products, which anyone and everyone, all businesses and residents, can bring in latex products to the program. And then oil-based products can be brought in by residents and small businesses. Small businesses is the exception there. Folks who generate CESQG levels, that would be roughly 220 pounds or less per month of oil-based products. But again, those small businesses any business of any size can bring in latex products to the program. We also offer a large volume pickup service, and I just want to remind folks of this hugely helpful service that's very popular across California for folks who may have over many years accumulated what it looks like in this picture, a big room, a corner of the room of paint. No additional cost for this service, 300-gallon minimum. About three cubic yard boxes full, and if you like to pass the word along to anyone about this service, please send them to our website listed there, as well as our hotline. There's also a large volume service, which is a kind of a spin-off of the large volume pickup service, where a site that persistently, through its activities, ends up with paint to be picked up can sign a contract with us for no additional cost. These are usually larger institutional folks who have a lot of, especially a lot of latex paint to move. Folks are able to pack it themselves, and they need at least 3 full bins, just like a large volume pickup. Paint transportation system is premised on statewide service providers. The two selected by PaintCare are Clean Harbors and StarCycle for transportation, and those services that we provide, that they're provided to users across the state, are an on-call pre-scheduled pickup, collecting containers and spill kits, processing services, and they also provide PaintCare with a very useful and vital service to get data on transportation and processing, to really help dig into numbers about where the material is going, what's happening to it, and helps us to do this report, things like this report. The paint processing methods are listed here below that were utilized in California during the last program year, summarized as reuse for both oil and latex, recycled paint for latex, alternative products, which we'll talk about coming up in just a moment, and for both energy recovery, oil-based and latex reuse for energy recovery. Oil-based paint is also incinerated as a last resort, and then latex also has the option to be used as either alternative daily cover for landfill, and a small portion of paint does end up still as landfill. So that is the least desirable alternative. Here's an example of a reuse room that you'll see across the state of California. In this case, a very well organized room. You see these reuse swap shops known by many different names, but these are great places to give paint one more chance to get on the wall before it actually needs to be recycled. These are hopefully becoming much more popular over the coming years. It's something that we really will be prioritizing and looking to increase over time. Paint recycling, here's sort of a very short overview of what paint recycling looks like, where paint is brought in cubic yard boxes, palletized or depalletized rather, and then placed into containers of similar color attributes, and then blended or finally into a usable product. Alternative products, again, it's a small portion of what we've done this year, but it's definitely an important development avenue whereby, again, much similar, the paint comes in the same way, but the end result is not a can of paint per se, but it's a couple of these different types of alternative products. In the top, you'll see sort of a brick style, a paver style material, and then on the bottom you'll see something that's basically this is material that was dried up paint that was processed and turned and coated and used in something you can use to decorate your garden. It's immensely popular for the folks who use this product. It's always a subject of curiosity and intrigue. It's definitely something that's a good use for something that might not otherwise be utilized. Energy recovery is another key aspect of what happens. So material can't be recycled per se. And there is definitely an opportunity to try to bulk the paint together to use an industrial process to recover some of the energy out of it. And in this case, we're looking at where it's used as a fuel to help at a cement plant. So looking at the current state of recycling opportunities here in California, I wanted to show you kind of where we're at in terms of paint retailers and the different sites. This year we've done a little bit more breaking down of the opportunities. So I'm sorry, I'm hearing a complaint of sound quality issues. So see if I can try to improve that for you. Does this sound any better? I get some feedback on that.
Yes, right. That is sounding better, Jeremy.
Okay.
And if we continue to have problems, you could switch over to your mic and speakers on your MacBook Pro. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter, for letting me know. So looking at the recycling opportunities presently available, we've broken up the categories a little bit more than we had in the past. We've got paint retailers comprising 583 of the recycling year-round sites. Again, we're calling these are year-round sites. Then we've got HHW facilities, 106, and then that grouping transfer station, landfills, recycling centers up to 25, and then other sites. And there's the asterisk to just tell you those are ones that don't quite fit in. We do have in terms of categorization, they're public yards, other types of places that don't fit into these primary categories. And then we also have reuse stores as well throughout the state, and then we have also an HHW event site. Actually, see sound issues again. So I'm going to try and move out to improve the sound. Hi, I'm going to try the sound better here again. Is this a better sound for everyone? I'll keep talking.
That's sounding better, Jeremy.
Okay, great. All right, so then we're looking at supplemental sites. This is many of the same categories, but these are going to be sites that were not open either all 12 months of the year or were periodically open either for one time only in the case of an HHW event
or something like that. And then we've also got, I'll try to elaborate a little bit more on these categories, direct large volume pickups. Those are the LVPs that I spoke of. The non-public sites, that actually refers to the large volume pickups where we have a contract. So those are again some institutional folks who they have their own bins, but they're not open to the public, and they're also, so they can't be counted as someone can be cannot necessarily be categorized as something the public could access. But that's all just the large volume users rather. Door-to-door programs, those are typically either on call or services provided by local communities for curbside service. And then you've got HHW facilities. Again, these would be maybe just facilities that are open portions of the year. Paint-only events, those would be the events that PaintCare put on throughout the year. And then you've got paint retailers. These are maybe folks who were part of the program for a portion of the year, but for whatever reason, or they joined later in the year or something like that, where they couldn't be counted for an entire year. And then one paint recycler with limited participation will typically mean for a portion of the year. Within the program, we also provide best practices for collection sites, and this can be found in the annual report in the appendix, so that we have the ability for everyone to see sort of what do PaintCare sites get when they become PaintCare sites, especially on the retail side. So we talk about in the site guidelines, we talk about all the rules and procedures and applicable laws that pertain to the program. So throughout the year, we're engaged in site visits. We are analyzing collection bins and giving folks pointers on how best to utilize them when we see, describing volume limits on what we can and cannot take, and then also pickups, how to do pickups, kind of giving everybody the stem to stern on how to make use of the program. So I'm sorry, I see a question here for Pete Pastors. I just want to address it about a viewer closing down. Pete, are you, I don't know, Bob, if there's anything to help Pete with that.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, what is the issue he's facing?
It says, my viewer keeps closing down, requiring me to continually hit orange arrow key to redisplay it, if there's any ideas on that.
I will look into that and get back to him in back channels.
Okay, thanks. So a huge effort on the part of the PaintCare staff, the coordinators throughout the regions in California, is to work with both the retail sites and the HHW programs throughout the year, and also to try to see who else might be able to join into the program and take advantage of it, of the offering. So to bring to current our state of progress, we have 81 HHW partnerships as of the end of the program year 2015, and I just wanted to emphasize that and add rather that the largest remaining program at the end of June 2030, 2015, which is Orange County, a county of approximately 3 million people, added their programs, facilities, and activities to the PaintCare program as of September of 2015. So that will be an important thing to reflect on and to watch for, to see its impact on the program in the next time we do this, when we talk around Thanksgiving in 2016. So throughout the year, one of the key things that the program coordinators are focused on, as well as I am focused on, is staying in touch with both the Northern and Southern California household hazardous waste community through the information exchange meetings. They're very important avenues for either communicating or receiving feedback. Also, I'm also want to make sure we emphasize the importance of rural counties and stay in communication with the rural counties. And one of the ways we do that is through the Environmental Services Joint Power Authority, meetings, the ESJPA meetings, to make sure that we're understanding where folks are at, what's coming from, and what's happening in those communities. And then conferences throughout the year, hugely important to stay in touch with different communities, such as the oil and hazardous waste, used oil conference, and the recycling conferences that occur throughout the year in California, as well as trade organizations such as contractors who definitely are big users of the program. The stakeholder meetings as well, such as these or other meetings throughout the year, maybe not conferences, but meetings that stakeholders have in various parts of California, either regionally or statewide organizations who have board meetings and such. We also maintain a mailing list of California retailers to keep in touch, and one of the things we'll be continuing to look at in 2016 are folks who are not in the program, who we may have not had a touch with, to try to keep in touch with those folks and not just see the folks that we have seen before. That's really important, and that's all part of an ongoing commitment to in-person recruitment to just increase the convenience of the program. So we're going to talk about a little bit what we've been up to. Last year, one of the big goals of the program is to provide convenience to the state, and this is part of the program plan to distribute the sites throughout the state to reach as many people as possible, both in distribution and density. And I should add to this, as of the annual report, we are still working on reconfiguring the convenience criteria for density, but we can report on sort of where the distribution of the site and where people are at. And in the previous year's report, we had exceeded that 90% goal of one site within 15 miles for 90% of the state's residents. However, we've done even better than that for this year with reaching a number, and I'll show. Maybe it's better shown in a map than in text. I'll show you here. This is the map of all the year-round drop-off sites, where we've got 733 of those, and 98. So again, the convenience criteria was 90%. Currently, 98.4% of California residents are within 15 miles of a year-round site. So if you factor in also the supplemental sites, so these are the one-day events, the seasonal, you'll notice in, say, Inyo County, there's, just kind of go back and forth there, Inyo County, there are no year-round drop-off sites just because of the impact of the weather in the winter, but there are sites there in Inyo County, supplemental sites to cover some of the population that lives there seasonally. So 99.2% of California residents are within 15 miles of a year-round or a supplemental site. And so based on this, again, we look at maybe where are the rest of the folks, and is there any other way to continue to reach out to those folks. So we do continue to do that, and that's going back to the previous slide where we talk about staying in touch with the ESJPA, the HHWIEs, and trying to be very, very in touch with the areas we've yet to reach. Now this also looks at the large volume pickups. So again, this is just activity in the last year, 184 direct large volume pickups from 157 sites. So what this tells us is that we do have a few folks who are bringing us paint more than once a year. Not too many, but this is good to see the dispersion across most of the populated areas of the state, to see where we have folks where we can actually come out to them, pick up their paint, and service them in a way that maybe a retail store or even some of the smaller facilities might not be able to handle. And what could be more convenient than someone coming to you and getting your paint? I wanted to highlight a little bit of our paint-only collection events that were held throughout the calendar, throughout the program year, rather. So we had events starting out. The very first one was last fall in Truckee, and then the rest this fall. I won't read through the list, but you can kind of see a little bit of north, a little bit of south, a little bit more biased towards the south. Looking forward to, we also have already done an event so far this year, did another event up in Truckee. It was so popular last year, we definitely wanted to get back there and did it this year at the Truckee County Airport. Then you've got, looking at forward to 2016, you've got some events lined up. These are somewhat tentative. One is at least Santa Clarita looks like it's going to be for sure, but we're still working on more events for 2016, where there's been proven to be in certain areas where either there's just not there maybe aren't even the possibility of having enough sites at the retail to cover all the people who live there. But we're trying to do our part to cover those gaps through these events. And that's Daria. She's very friendly. She likes to say hi to people at the events. That's Daria, the picture there. Talking about sales volume, so this sales volume is relevant because it reflects the funding. So if paint is sold, then we receive funding for the program, and if it goes down, there's a little bit less funding for the program. So from 2014, we saw sales decrease 4%. So I think roughly 68 million in 2014, down to about 65 million in 2015. And looking at the amount paint processed, so the sales did go down, but the paint processed did actually go up. It looks like an increase, and again, this reflects somewhat the increase of bringing more programs on, not just simply more paint, but also more programs being serviced by PaintCare. So an increase of about up by a third from 2014, from about 2 million gallons total. And just for some insight into that, I think the split between oil-based and latex was roughly the same, a little bit more on the latex side from last year, but just about 1%, not too much of a difference. Going a little bit deeper into those numbers, we've got a breakdown between what each disposition method was. And so you're looking at reuse. Of course, the listing here is more in the order of preference, or the waste hierarchy, what we would like to see happen. And reuse is sitting at about 3% on the latex side, about 2% on the oil-based side from the previous, between the two. Again, we're hoping to focus and prioritize reuse because of its benefit. Recycled paint, so latex, 72% of the paint, the latex paint that was delivered, was able to be turned into new paint. So a really, in my own personal estimation, a really high rate of return. I'm certain that some of the favorable weather conditions in California contribute to that. Being someone from Minnesota, knowing how hard it is to keep paint from freezing and going through that cycle, so 72% on the latex side, pretty impressive number in my opinion. And then we've decided to break down things a little bit more this year. Instead of lumping it into large categories, decided to break out decorative ground cover, the kind of the colorful rocks that I showed prior in the program or in this presentation, and then concrete products, which would be kind of those bricks and different products that can be made, such as traffic stoppers you might see in a parking lot. That's what's been utilized. 5% actually being utilized at that level for that purpose. Energy recovery, so being blended with something else to make a fuel, that's 15%. Alternative daily landfill cover, ADC as people call it, less than 1%. That's just one small processor. And then you've got disposal, so landfill, down at 5%. So 5% of latex being landfilled. And then reuse on the oil-based side, 2%. Energy recovery, 41%. Incineration, 57%. So again, this was kind of lumped together, I believe, before in one category. We thought we'd break it out between those two methods, either energy recovery, blending into a fuel, or being used directly as fuel. So, talking now about the financing mechanism of the program, I'll just kind of bring back to the fore this diagram before, just to remind folks of the pass-through to the customer, and then how the money makes its way back to PaintCare to pay for the program, as to show that we how the funds would actually flow, and how it's actually used. This is the essence of it is through paint transportation and processing. We'll see, I believe on the next slide, how exactly much, but that is the lion's share of where the money is focused on. Then, of course, you've got site supplies, assistance, anything that a site needs that isn't related to processing to help folks be participants in the program. That's that category. And then we've got outreach to the various audiences across the state, staff in the state, as well as staff that help us outside of the state to help put contracts together or make sure that we have enough bins to supply to supply everybody. And then we've also got insurance, legal fees, consulting services, and state agency fees that also bear on the program. So here's kind of a summary of those various activities, and you'll note that transportation and processing is 63.7% of the program cost. And then also you can see the top line, the total revenue of the program, the assets of the program at the beginning of the year, and then the cost of the program at $26.2 million. So that's sort of a summary of those various categories. And maybe the bottom line is, what does it actually cost per gallon? That's an important metric. And it looks like this year the cost per gallon has come up to about $9.66, all things being allocated. Education and outreach. So I want to take a look at what we've been doing differently this year. So it's important to note. This is the split of the media mix for 2015, and just comparing it a little bit to last year, it looks like print has been print, I think, was about 14% last year. I think things have been moved a little bit more towards the side of cable TV. You may have seen, folks in California may have seen, I think I caught one the other day of just a small regional spot on HGTV and things like that to try to get straight into maybe to the homeowners, directly focused on the people who are using paint, versus maybe print, which would be more directed to a broader audience. And I'll give you examples of each of these different methods in just a moment. So here's the signage. There are some. The signage is not all that different from what we've seen in previous years, but I just want to give you an example of what we are using right now. Currently, notice in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got a bilingual sign where everything is sort of we've got it both in English and Spanish, specific for certain communities. Print materials we've done, I believe this is new this year. In the middle we had a nice mat that's used great for hardware stores, a signature mat. But this is the slate of print materials. I just want to also emphasize the number of language translations and these are actually proven in certain areas, very popular in the communities where they're needed: Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, all available. These products, brochures and fact sheets, and again, part of the coordinator's role in the stores is to really understand the needs and try to draw out those requests from folks to make sure that they know that they're available. So Facebook, and so it kind of may surprise folks, but PaintCare did not really have a Facebook page until 2014, and when PaintCare decided to put together a Facebook page, it turned out to be pretty popular. It was a slow start, kind of under the radar, but as you can see, a certain time point, about December of 2014, things really started to ramp up and take off. And so yesterday, in about less than a year from when we really started to take off, we reached 30,000 likes. And it should be noted that 53% of those folks are from California. So there's a lot of folks out there, and who, proportionally, that's about right based on the population of California. But yeah, 30,000 people for a brand new Facebook page, and it looks like we're going to keep growing. And actually, just a little note here in my ear that this page here until December 2014 was actually a page that was only targeted towards Oregon. So that's the impact of widening it out to the broader country. Then we have we're looking at print advertising, and this is definitely looks like a little bit of a refresh from what we had last year. We placed a new newspaper ad where Red Plum is not available. Red Plum is that shared mail. You may receive it in your mail with the grocery ads. I actually just got one last week in Oregon to say this is where, basically sites very, very targeted to say here are the sites that are in your community. So more than just general awareness, but here's where you can actually take it. So then on the left-hand side, you have general newspaper ads where you have maybe fewer media options. You don't necessarily have Red Plum. You've got the ability to do that as well. And then we've got an example here on the bottom left-hand side for one of our one-day events. So newspaper is definitely very helpful in that, having worked some of these one-day events. A lot of people actually bring the newspaper ad into the event and say, this is where I found out about it. And then we're looking at some other digital elements of what we were able to put together this year, and we had a few, basically 4 messages by right. So we've got the pre-purchase decision-making situation where you've got people, how do I know what to buy? How are we supposed to know? And I actually just saw this one as well on TV not so long ago, where folks who are moving into a new house, they're just trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. And then, so we got 2 commercials with that buy right message. And then we've got a use it up message. So that would be something creative. You can see someone's got like these wicker baskets or these crafty baskets where they're trying to figure out what to do. And dip them in some paint. And they make a great little a decoration for your home. This was also used in movie theaters. And then we've also got the recycle the rest, which is the final message, which is please, if you're not going to be able to use it up, then please make sure that you take care of it properly. Then we've got digital ads. So these are examples of what you might see for badges or sidebars to websites. And then also here's some a new slate of billboards. The one on the right, I think, is the one we've used in previous years, and then one on the left is a new one for this year. The website, in the graph here, we have a good kind of overview of what we see for website traffic. Most visitors who come to the PaintCare website, they're really looking for practical information. They want to know where they can find a PaintCare drop-off site. And we have upgraded the drop-off locator this year to make it even more user-friendly. Now using Google Maps, I can say for myself, it's proven to be quite an upgrade. So I hope you do check out the drop-off locator and make good use of it. And then finally, the survey that we did for this year there was a California paint usage and disposal survey that we conducted in June of 2014 and again in June of 2015. So some key insights from this. Again, this can be reviewed as well by looking at the report in the appendix. But key takeaways here are there's less paint being stored. People are not stockpiling it potentially as much. There's a decrease in those who said that they prefer to dispose of paint in the trash or store it. That's the so there's some movement, I would say. That's a pretty big decrease in people who are looking to dispose paint or rather than store it. There's double the number of people saying that they would take leftover paint to a store. So certainly some movement there, and impact of having more retail locations out there, more opportunities. Now it's an option, and looks like people are developing some type of interest in doing so. Interestingly enough, though, and this one I can't quite explain, I might lean on Paul Frisina, our outreach specialist, and maybe unanswerable, but there is no reported change in awareness that paint can be recycled. So so there is a movement maybe within the community that is that may be predisposed, but maybe not reaching outside. I'm not quite sure, but that's a takeaway from the survey. So looking forward to 2016, I wanted to kind of summarize some of the things that we're looking at 2016. The first is, I mentioned reuse several times here, and it's one of the things that happened sort of during the program year and accelerated after in the recent months, is the desire to increase reuse and putting money where our mouths are, by putting a financial incentive in place to do so. So starting this past fall, back in September, PaintCare pushed out a new reuse rate, increasing from 25 cents a container to $1.60 a gallon at most, if actual weights are used, and if you're using containers as an estimate, $1.20. So $1.20 or $1.60 a gallon, depending on your measurement method. Hopefully, gives a reason for people to take a second look if they were doing it, maybe not quite maybe on the fence to do it. Maybe that would be a good reason to start. So, keeping relationships strong. It can't be emphasized enough that the people who are part of the program really need to know how much we value and support their participation in the program. It's something that we take seriously and try to have a lot of fun with too, but we want to make sure that everyone knows how much we really want to keep the relationships good and want to make sure that folks who do partner with us know that we're there to support them. So through site visits and the various methods we talked about, we want to keep doing that and not lose sight. For folks not yet in the program, we want to remember those folks too. We want to make sure that we're trying to talk to as many people as possible, hear people's insights. If they're not in the program, how can we help them to get into the program? What more could we do? And then certainly on that same line is thinking about the remaining portions of the population that are either in a really densely populated area or an underserved area. How can we provide some type of service in those areas, or better serve, whether it's trying to bring another site on or have an event in the region? What more could we do? And just try to keep our minds focused on the fact that there's just some areas where it's either not convenient or there may be just simply too many people trying to put paints in too few storage bins. So we're just going to keep focusing on that for 2016, and there are other things that we're focused on, but these are the top line ones I wanted to share with everyone. And finally, I'll just share with you my contact information. Phone number 415-590-0259, and you can always reach me at my email address. And if you have any, would like to download the presentation today, or look at any of the other aspects of what we've got for you, we also have our website. I wanted to show you here just really quick. Folks can see that. The website here, the official docs section, we can find the program plan, annual reports, as well as what we'll be where we'll be posting this webinar. So with that, I will try and take a look at some of the questions that have been passed to me, and just bear with me a minute while I have a look at them.
Would you like me to read those for you, Jeremy?
Sure, Bob. If you could, and just I guess let's start with start from the first question that was asked, and then go down.
Okay. The first question we have is: does the energy recovery portion of latex and oil-based paint go to Commerce WTE, Covanta, or Southeast Resource Recovery? Jeremy, you may have muted yourself.
Yes, Carlos, I'm not completely familiar with that, with the exact, where exactly all of them go. I know that we have a list of providers in the annual report. None of those names are familiar to me. Commerce, WT, Covanta, Southeast Resource Recovery. But if you're looking for where any of the material goes, you can actually find that on it's in the annual report in the section where we talk about disposition, the names of the providers and where they go to. To answer your question in brief, those names don't look familiar to me.
Okay. Next question. Can you elaborate on the transfer station, landfills, recycling centers site category?
Sure. Well, so basically, rather than give each one of the three types of facilities their own category, it seemed like these facilities kind of filled a similar role. There is a transfer station, landfills, recycling centers. Many people sometimes refer to landfills and transfer stations alternately. They refer to a landfill as a transfer station, maybe not a transfer station as a landfill, but they all sometimes are used interchangeably. Recycling centers can often be co-located with transfer stations. So because there's some overlap between those three types of facilities, maybe not all three at once, but sometimes one and the other, we decided to put those all kind of in one category.
Okay. And the next question. Can you explain what was the main reason for disposing latex paint or incinerating oil-based paint?
Yeah, so a lot of what's goes into deciding to dispose of latex paint versus not is based on the quality of the material that is brought to the recycling facility. So if the paint is of quality where it can be, so basically paint does degrade over time, and not all paint makes us to us in a condition where it can be recycled into new paint, that is. So some of the processors are able to do something with it where they're able to make it into a new product, but it really is all dependent on the quality of the material coming in. And so there are alternative means to doing it, whether it's making it into the bricks. Some material can be made into the bricks. Others, honestly, there's not much that can be done with it. And so really we're searching for the best, the processors are looking for the best thing that they can possibly do with it. In some cases that does end up being energy recovery. In some cases that does end up being alternative daily cover. And again, in the worst case scenario, it may end up having certain processors may end up landfilling the material. Again, a very small portion, and certainly not something that we're aiming to do when we get the material at all.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Next question, can you explain whether recycling centers can be registered into the PaintCare program as collection or consolidation centers?
Well, a recycling center, we do have a number of recycling centers in the program. It really, as collection or consolidation centers, that's I believe, it kind of, I hate to give this answer because it's a wishy-washy answer and that's not my style, but it does kind of depend. Each facility's got its own permit structure and authority overseeing it. So it will depend, but certainly we do have a number of recycling centers that are collection facilities or do end up being places where the material is brought in and worked with on site. So if you'd like to contact me after the program or the webinar rather to discuss your particular facility or how we might be able to help, I'm glad to do it.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I think you've answered this one just a moment ago, but I'll read it anyway in case you'd like to elaborate or cover a different point. The question is, you reported that some paint were landfilled. In what situation would paint be sent to landfill?
And so it's really under certain limited circumstances. It's when the material is degraded to the point where there's really nothing else that could be done. It couldn't be recycled into a new product. And there are certain processors. It's again a very limited subset of folks that they're legally permitted to do so, and after they've done either all the reprocessing that's possible to do with the material, that's the end result. So it's really just simply based on the condition of the material, is when condition of the material and who might be processing the material.
Okay, and we currently see one more question here, so if anyone else has a question, please submit it now. It would be a good time to do that. And the last question we have on file: is there a strategy to increase the capacity or frequency of pickups within the individual paint stores to minimize the number of people being turned away because the boxes are full?
Yes, there is. I alluded to it a little bit, but I'll try and speak more directly to it right now. We are working on the first part of it, the capacity frequency of pickups. We certainly try to ensure that every store that is part of the program has as many boxes in the store as they're able to give us, basically donate as much space as they possibly can to us. So that's the first step. But the second step about frequency of pickups, we're rapidly seeing an adaptation of where stores were, calling in for pickups. We see the pickups come in, and we also work with the processors, or rather the haulers, to determine when it's time to really start picking up. Because sometimes problems just they may go unnoticed. Maybe a store just is comfortable maybe calling in for a pickup. When we notice that the demand is there, but they're only maybe getting picked up once a month, we will work with the store to get them on a pre-scheduled pickup. And we are noticing, in fact, that stores have gone maybe from once a month to once a week. And if a store warrants it, we will pick them up. And there are some stores in the Bay Area where the situation is such where we do pick them up twice a week. So those are rare, but those stores are out there. So, and we're willing to do that and able to do that where it's necessary. To minimize number of stores being turned away, boxes are full. That is a key strategy. Get more sites. Also, when I'm looking forward into the 2016, if let's say we're capped out on retail sites, every retail site that is participating that wants to try to work with some of the HHW programs in the Bay Area and in the more populated areas of Southern California as well, to try to brainstorm on other opportunities for sites that we might have either within the retail community or potentially do some of these one-day events where in areas where we're having trouble finding locations, such as it's really the more populated the area, the harder it is to find a good site to do an event. So anyone in this call who's listening from an HHW program, we'd love to talk about any sites that either you're not using or that you had in the past that you might like to bring into the fold, where we might be able to host an event. So that's another strategy. Really helps to take the heat off of stores in some of these more densely populated areas. Hope that helps.
And Jeremy, we have one more comment to come in, and I'll add, let's talk after the webinar because I might know some of those folks for you. But we just had a comment come in from Paul, and his response was rusty, moldy, or too dry, which I suspect was in reference to the paint landfill question. Sure,
yeah. The condition of the paint being so poor that there's nothing much that can be done with it. Yeah, for sure. That's
okay.
There's or not only that, rusty, moldy, too dry, any type of contamination. If there's something in the paint that's clearly it's been mixed with something else. But again, only when it's in that sorry state.
Okay, and that's it for our questions, Jeremy.
All right. Well, I'd like to give everybody an opportunity again to get any more questions in if they'd like. But again, even if you weren't able to get your question, formulate one, or if you have any other ones that you'd like to ask, you have my phone number. It's up on the screen right now. You have my email, and be glad to. And you can also contact your local or your regional coordinator. And I'll,
we have had one more come in.
Oh, sure.
As a site that reprocesses paint, we are suddenly having trouble finding places to recycle the empty buckets from latex paint. Is this becoming an issue statewide?
Let's see. I have not noticed that this is an issue. The latex, the empty buckets, guessing meaning like the 5-gallon pails, the larger buckets, or just the pails, I'm sure in general. I have not noticed that. I think the process. My main insight into this is through the processors, and the processors that I've talked to, seen, met with. They haven't indicated to me that they have. One thing they have noticed, I should say, that you're not. Maybe you're not seeing things. Is we have definitely heard that prices have gone down in terms of what type of, and that may be maybe the constraint that you're seeing. I've definitely heard prices go down for what is being recycled, but I haven't straight up heard the inability to find places to recycle. But if you are experiencing something, it might be because potentially prices are roughly half or maybe even less of what they were at some point in the past. So that's what I know.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And again, please contact either me or your regional coordinator. If we need anything else, again, this presentation will be posted fairly shortly on PaintCare's website on the CA official docs section. So thanks for your time, everyone, today.